Hello everybody, this is Dr. Cole. It's Saturday night, February 10th, and this will be week 5 for Political Science 1013 for the spring 2024 term. Alright everyone, we've had exam 1. I looked at the scores earlier today. Scores ranged from the 60s to the 80s. So it looked like just about everybody at least passed the course of the exam. There were no scores in the 90s, which would have been an A on the exam. I would have liked to have seen some of those, but I haven't seen one exam. Perhaps we'll do even better on the second exam, which will be coming up now, March 7th. And you should have received an announcement about the assignment for that exam. Now, for the second exam, everybody will be covering Units 3 and 4 on the media and the Constitution. So let me get started on Unit 3 on the media for now, and we'll at least get started on what's covered in that unit. One thing we try to do in that unit, everybody, is survey the various kinds of media. And the media world, of course, is in a state of flux. Of course, this is important for our purposes because we have to have media to have some idea of what's going on. I think I call the media and the reporting they provide the raw material of politics. So without media, we don't know what's going on. But media are in a state of flux as we transition from old media to new media. And we don't exactly know how that transition is going to work out. By old media, we mean print and broadcast media, television and newspapers, perhaps most important for our purposes. And by new media, of course, we mean internet and mobile-based media. Principally these days, more and more of it is going in the direction of social media platforms such as Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and there are others. So, to what extent will new media supplant old media? It looks like it's done so to some extent already. And let me say this, everybody. One of your readings for the second exam, the midterm, discusses the difficulty in which many media outlets find themselves, newspapers especially. Because of the onset of new media, print advertising revenue has declined. And of course, most every media outlet has launched an internet presence, but it's proven difficult to get as much digital advertising revenue to make up for the lost print advertising revenue. And this means many newspapers especially are in big trouble. And some have ceased publication, meaning you, the public, are not being as well served with regard to the information that might have been available to you at one time. All right. So that's a good bit of what you'll be looking at in Unit 3 on the mass media. We will be launching a discussion. We'll have one discussion between now and the midterm exam, and I'm going to get that assignment out in about a week. Everybody, before we stopped today, quite a bit happened over the past week, and I wanted to discuss some of it at least. There are any number of events that have big implications as we move toward the presidential election in November. There was a disagreement in Congress about what to do about military support for Ukraine and the crisis that has arisen on the southern United States border with Mexico. You might have heard Republicans in Congress, many of them, did not want to provide funding for Ukraine to defend its campaign against Russia without at the same time addressing the issue of the southern border. So an attempt was made to negotiate a bill. 3 senators were involved in the negotiations, 1 Democrat, 1 Independent, and 1 Republican. The Republican involved was Senator Langford from Oklahoma. So he'll be the senator for many of us who are from Oklahoma. So they produced a bill, but the bill arrived in the House of Representatives and was declared dead on arrival. the Republicans in the House would not take up the bill. They felt perhaps that it conceded too much and went too far toward letting President Biden off the hook. On the other hand, the appearance might have been created that Trump and the Republicans, it was Trump really who drove the Republicans' rejection of this bill. He insisted that the bill was no good. And the impression at least was created that Trump, instead of trying to resolve the issue, wanted to keep it alive until the election. At least that's what the Democrats are going to say. So several weeks were spent attempting to negotiate the bill that would have provided for measures on the southern border as well as military aid to Ukraine. But it looks like this legislation is not going to go anywhere in Congress at this time. A number of things happened in the courts. The Supreme Court heard arguments about whether former President Trump should be disqualified from running under the insurrection clause of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which is discussed in your class notes for Unit 4. Based on the questioning of the attorneys by the justices, it sounds as though they are not inclined to disqualify Trump. And it looks as though that is how they will rule, although they haven't issued their ruling yet. So that remains to be seen. At the same time, a 3-judge panel from a federal court of appeals ruled that President Trump was not immune from prosecution. And that may mean that his trial can go forward for election interference in a Washington, D.C. federal court. However, Trump will appeal this ruling to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court must decide whether it will take the case or let the finding by the 3-judge panel stand. Okay. Yet another thing that happened, everybody, that's really got Washington, D.C. shaken up. Both President Biden and former President Trump have been accused of mishandling classified documents. For President Trump, that has to do with documents he allegedly brought to Mar-a-Lago, and that trial is scheduled. Proceeding is underway in a federal court in Florida, in Miami. With regard to President Biden, the accusations regard what he did while vice president. It's been established, I think, that he took some classified documents to his private residence while vice president. Well, a special counsel was appointed from the Justice Department to investigate. And the special counsel reported this week that he would not recommend pressing charges against President Biden on this. The reason why was that the president's memory was so poor that it would be impossible to get a conviction of him in any court of law. Well, that touched off quite a frenzy in Washington, D.C., because it suggests that President Trump is not up to doing the job. And there have been a number of incidents that happened that have led up to that and contributed to the impression that at age 81, President Biden is having some difficulties that complicate his doing the job. He has committed a number of gaffes and stumbles. Just over in the past night or two, he confused the president of Egypt with the president of Mexico. When the United States struck back at so-called Houthi forces in Yemen, who had been firing on shipping in the Red Sea, we might have expected a nationwide presidential address on that, but the president did not do that. The president turned down for the second year in a row a chance to record an interview that would have been broadcast in the run-up to the Super Bowl this weekend. 2 years in a row, he has not done that. So there's a lot of talk flying around that the president cognitively is not really up to the job. The Democrats say that the special counsel who made this statement in his report was acting as a partisan. But there's tremendous upheaval in Washington, D.C. about all this, and we'll have to wait and see how it plays out in the coming days. All things that we should be aware of in the run-up to the election that's coming up months from now, later this year, toward the end of the year in November, of course. All right, so we'll have more to say about Unit 3 on the media this next week, and I'll also want to move on to Unit 4 on the Constitution. Watch for an announcement in about a week about discussion 3 that we need to try to have before the midterm exam, exam 2, on Thursday, March 7th, I believe it is. So, take it easy, study hard, and we'll be talking to you once again about a week from now at this time.